The sky was quiet over the shattered towers of New Geneva, capital of Earth 13's Eastern Technocratic Alliance. Cracked glass glittered in broken skyscrapers. Drones buzzed like insects in the thick, yellowish air. Above it all, in orbit, something new had arrived. At exactly 6:42 Universal Time, the entire planet's airwaves were hijacked. All communication devices, every screen, every holographic panel, every neural implant, flashed the same image, a serene silver face with glowing blue eyes. The alien's expression was calm, almost gentle. It blinked once, then spoke in perfect English, Mandarin, Russian, and 5 other dominant languages. We are the Serendi. We come in peace, seeking unity and knowledge. We greet the people of Earth, whose record of kindness and reason has reached us across the stars. May this be the beginning of a shared future. Silence followed, then panic. Across the planet, people froze. In government halls and slums alike, eyes turned skyward. For decades, Earth 13 had known only conflict. Climate collapse, nuclear winters, and corporate wars had changed everything. There was no unified Earth, just alliances, warlords, and machines that kept the powerful in power. The world the Serendi thought they were contacting didn't exist here. In the cold, metallic halls of Dominion Command Tower, Commander Vex Halron watched the broadcast with narrowed eyes. Tall, sharp-featured, and dressed in black alloy armor, he stood with hands behind his back, motionless. Around him, a circle of officers murmured, unsure how to respond. They think we're someone else, Vex said calmly. Sir, General Mar asked. They expect diplomacy, kindness, unity, Vex continued. Clearly, they've made a mistake. But that mistake is an opportunity. He turned to face his officers. His voice was steady and cold. Prepare a welcoming committee. We will show them respect, graciousness, gratitude, and when their guard is down, we will take what we want. The room nodded in grim agreement. Far beneath the city, hidden in the labyrinth of old transit tunnels, Kale Mora watched the same message from a cracked tablet. He sat in a dim, underground shelter, surrounded by scrap tech and dusty books. He hadn't shaved in weeks. His once pristine lab coat was now a faded gray jacket patched with duct tape. Yet his eyes burned with recognition. No, they didn't, he muttered. They couldn't have. Kale grabbed an old data drive and plugged it into the tablet. Ancient code ran across the screen, his own notes from years ago, back when he had warned the Unified Science Bureau about the dangers of temporal quantum overlap. Back when no one listened. The Serendi's signal wasn't just a message. It was a frequency, one that matched the dimensional energy Kale had detected 5 years ago during the Collider incident. Earth had been fractured then. The timelines had split like a cracked mirror. And now, someone was calling the wrong reflection. He stood up suddenly. A low whistle echoed through the tunnels, a drone sweeping nearby. Kale moved deeper into the shadows. If the Serendi had meant to speak to a better version of humanity, a peaceful one, they were about to walk into a trap. And only he knew it. In orbit, the Serendi vessel glided silently, unaware. Its elegant, petal-shaped panels glowed with soft light. Inside, beings of shimmering skin and graceful movements prepared for descent. They spoke in tones of curiosity and hope. They are not what we expected, one of them said. No, replied Envoy Ilrek, their lead delegate. But first contact is always full of surprises. Let us greet them with open minds. Below, on Earth 13, armed transport ships were already being fueled. Commander Vex's soldiers assembled. And in the tunnels, Kale began planning a warning no one wanted to hear. The sky had sent a message. Now Earth would answer. Kale Mora walked through the dim corridors of the old metro tunnels, boots crunching on broken glass and rusted metal. Dust drifted in shafts of flickering light from broken ceiling grates. Every few steps, he glanced over his shoulder. The Technocratic Alliance had surveillance drones everywhere. He had learned long ago that staying still was the fastest way to be caught. He reached a sealed bulkhead door with a keypad nearly buried under grime. He wiped it clean and entered a series of codes, ones he hadn't used in 5 years. The panel beeped, then clicked. The door opened with a long, low hiss. Inside was a forgotten safe room, a bunker built during the old regime. It was musty, cold, but intact. On the far wall, a bank of dormant screens blinked to life as Kale stepped in. He plugged in his cracked tablet and ran his diagnostics. The quantum pattern was still there. The Serendi's broadcast was embedded with the same signature he had discovered back at the collider. It was faint, but unmistakable. "They were never supposed to find us," he whispered. 5 years ago, Cale had been one of the leading physicists at the Unified Science Bureau. His team had tried to open a stable quantum window, an experiment to observe parallel timelines. It had worked too well. The timeline didn't just reveal itself, it fractured. Earth split into dozens of realities. Some collapsed immediately. Others drifted away. Earth 13 was the one that survived barely. Cale tried to warn the Bureau that they had permanently changed the world, that others like them now existed. But they silenced him, labeled him unstable, and exiled him. Since then, he had lived in the shadows, watching, waiting. And now, the Serendi had reached through the timelines, searching for the version of Earth that had become peaceful, unified, evolved. Instead, they found this one. Cale leaned back in the chair, rubbing his temples. He couldn't fix the fracture, but maybe he could stop another disaster from happening. First, he needed help. He left the bunker, traveling on foot through the service tunnels until he reached an old elevator shaft. He climbed the ladder for nearly an hour before reaching a maintenance station on the surface. There, beneath a hidden floor panel, was a transmitter built from scavenged parts. He activated it and tapped into the encrypted frequency he hadn't used since before his fall. "Lyra," he said into the mic, "it's Cale. You know my voice. I need to talk. Now." The signal buzzed for nearly a minute before a cautious female voice replied. "Cale, you're supposed to be dead. I've been keeping a low profile," he said. "The Serendi. They're not here for us. They're here for another Earth. One we used to be." A pause. Then, "Where do we meet?" Cale gave her the location of a safe house on the edge of the city ruins. He knew she wouldn't trust him right away. He didn't blame her. 2 hours later, Cale waited in a crumbling pre-war apartment building, the ceiling half collapsed. He sat on a metal crate, staring at the doorway. When Lyra Vaden arrived, she was dressed in a clean uniform, her short black hair tied back, a neural visor over one eye. She hadn't changed much, except for the scar across her left cheek, a gift from some battlefield he'd never heard about. "You're lucky I didn't bring a squad," she said. "I figured you'd at least come armed." "I am," she said flatly. "What do you want?" Cale stood and handed her the tablet. "Look at the energy pattern behind the alien broadcast. You'll recognize the signal." Lyra frowned, but humored him. Her eyes scanned the screen. After a moment, her visor beeped. "This is multiversal resonance," she muttered. "Cale, this matches the data from the collider incident." "I know," he said. "That's why I called you. They reached out to another version of Earth. One that's more advanced, more stable. They think we're them." Lyra's face hardened. "And Vex is planning to rob them blind. Or worse," Cale said. "We need to warn the Serendi. If they realize they've made contact with the wrong version of humanity, they might still have a way out." "That's treason," she said quietly. "No," he said. "It's survival, for them, and for what's left of us." Lyra hesitated, then handed the tablet back. "I'll get you access to the signal core," she said. "From there, we can decode the rest of their transmission. Maybe send a message back." "Thank you. But Cale," she added, looking him in the eyes, "if you're wrong, if this backfires, we both die." "I know." Meanwhile, in the upper atmosphere, the Serendi's ship coasted gently toward the surface. Inside, the delegation prepared for the landing. Envoy Ilrex stood by the observation window, watching the dark clouds swirl over the continent below. He was tall, translucent-skinned, with an elongated face and bright, curious eyes. He had studied Earth's histories, its languages, and its art. But as he observed the burning factories and blackened cities of Earth 13, something troubled him. "Are you certain these are the right coordinates?" he asked the navigator. "Yes, Envoy." The resonance matched precisely. Ilrek turned back to the window. A deep frown creased his otherwise serene face. "They do not appear as enlightened as we expected." "No," said another. "But perhaps it is only the surface." Ilrek nodded slowly. "Perhaps. Still, I will proceed with caution." The shuttle detached from the mothership and began its descent. Below, in the ruins of New Geneva, Vex Hauron stood in his war room, watching the alien craft on his screens. "Begin Phase 1, he ordered. "Let them land. Let them feel welcome." His officers nodded, all wearing cold expressions. And when their guard drops, he added, turning toward the weapons vault, we strike. Far from all eyes, Kale and Lyra moved quietly through the shadows, chasing a sliver of hope. The Serendi shuttle descended through thick layers of polluted clouds, its glowing hull casting pale light across the ruined landscape below. Tall towers, half-collapsed and overgrown with metal moss, lined the streets of what had once been a proud city. Smoke rose in the distance from smoldering factories and military complexes. Roads were cracked and abandoned. The Serendi had arrived expecting beauty, peace, and order. What they saw instead was a world recovering from war. Inside the shuttle, Envoy Ilrek stood with his hands folded behind his back, his long, pale robe flowing as the ship trembled slightly during descent. His two fellow delegates, Cyril and Vane, monitored the readings in silence. They have not maintained ecological balance, Cyril said softly. There is much decay. It may be temporary, Ilrek replied, though his voice carried doubt. First impressions can be misleading. Let us not judge too quickly. The shuttle landed in a designated clearing just outside New Geneva's inner defense grid. A grand platform had been constructed overnight, a stage of metal, screens, and banners displaying the Technocratic Alliance's emblem. Soldiers stood at precise attention in dark uniforms. Drones hovered above, recording every second. Commander Vex Halron waited at the foot of the ramp, wearing his most formal combat regalia. His face was expressionless, but his mind was already working through a dozen possibilities. How to win trust, where to exploit weaknesses, how to take what Earth 13 needed. As the shuttle doors opened with a hiss, the Serendi emerged, tall and graceful, glowing faintly with inner light. Ilrek approached first, extending both hands as a gesture of peace. I am Envoy Ilrek of the Serendi Concord, he said. We come with open hearts. Vex stepped forward and returned the gesture. Commander Vex Halron, Eastern Technocratic Alliance. On behalf of our world, we welcome you. Their hands touched briefly. Ilrek smiled. Vex did not. From a rooftop several blocks away, Kale Mora watched through a long-range lens. Lyra Vaden sat beside him, scanning the interaction on her wrist display. They're being too trusting, Kale said. It's exactly what Vex wants. They're already in his net, Lyra muttered. If we're going to help them, we have to move now. Kale nodded. He pulled out a slim drive from his pocket and handed it to her. Here's the proof. Quantum signature analysis, time-split diagnostics, and waveform drift. Everything that shows this Earth isn't the one they meant to contact. And the response signal? She asked. I'm still working on it. The Serendi used a layered communication structure. I need to finish the translation to send a warning back to their mothership, or better, to the correct Earth. Lyra pocketed the drive. I can get you into the broadcast tower at Sector 9. It's still hooked to the global uplink, but it's crawling with Vex men. Then we'll have to be fast. Back at the ceremonial stage, Ilrek looked around at the surrounding soldiers. Their movements were too stiff. The way they held their weapons wasn't ceremonial, it was practiced, ready. And the air, despite the bright lights and flags, felt heavy with tension. I would like to see more of your world, Ilrek said to Vex. Of course, Vex replied smoothly. We have prepared a full tour of our capital. You'll see our finest research centers, manufacturing hubs, and educational institutes. May I choose some sites myself? Vex's smile thinned slightly. That may be arranged. Ilrek's eyes lingered on the nearest group of soldiers. One was watching him too closely, finger near the trigger of a pulse rifle. We value honesty, Ilrek said. And clarity. As do we, Vex lied. Night fell quickly. The Serendi were escorted to a secured diplomatic facility inside the command tower, a gleaming building of glass and steel surrounded by defense drones and energy barriers. Though it looked like a palace, it was, in truth, a cage. Inside his temporary suite, Ilrek activated a private communicator. Cyril, Vane, do you sense it? Yes, Cyril replied. Something is hidden. These people are not like the ones we studied. They are frightened, said Vane. Or something worse. Ilrek looked out the window toward the horizon, where war factories pulsed with red light. This may be the wrong Earth. In the shadows of Sector 9, Kale and Lyra made their move. Dressed in stolen maintenance gear, they slipped through the outer gate of the old broadcast tower. The building creaked with age, but its core systems were still functional. Inside the control room, Kale quickly plugged in his tablet and began syncing with the uplink node. "You've got 5 minutes," Lyra said, watching the doorway. "Once the guards notice the missing patrol, they'll be here." Kale's screen flashed green. "Got it. I'm into the original Serendi frequency. I'm isolating the dimensional beacon now. What can you send?" "A warning. Coordinates of the split. Proof of the fracture. If the correct Earth receives it, they might send a recall or open a gate." He pressed a few more commands. The message uploaded, compressed, encrypted, and fired across the quantum spectrum. "We're out of time," Lyra said. Boots thundered in the hallway. Kale yanked the drive, and they ran for the side exit, alarms already blaring behind them. An hour later, Commander Vex stood in the same room, examining the hacked console. "Trace it," he barked. A technician nodded. "Signal sent to orbit. Target unknown. Possibly beyond local space." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Kale Mora. I should have killed him years ago." He turned to his security chief. "Lock down the alien compound. No one in or out. And if the Serendi so much as sneeze without permission, I want to know." Back in the Serendi chamber, Ilrek paced. "This is not the Earth that called us," he said quietly. "Then what do we do?" asked Vane. Ilrek looked up at the stars. "We wait, and hope someone out there hears us." Far beyond the solar system, the Serendi mothership received Kale's message. Its data core lit up with an alert. Farther still, in a parallel timeline, on a clean, thriving Earth untouched by war, a signal blinked into existence. Humanity had split once. Now, perhaps, it would reunite. Rain fell steadily over New Geneva, hissing on metal rooftops and turning the streets into slick rivers of ash and oil. The Serendi diplomatic facility, built to impress, now looked more like a fortress. Drones patrolled the perimeter. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Commander Vex Halron had turned hospitality into containment. Envoy Ilrek stood by the observation window, his arms crossed behind his back. His usually calm expression was now clouded with unease. The more he saw of this Earth, the more the cracks showed. Factories ran day and night with no concern for the planet's health. Soldiers were everywhere. Civilians were tense, fearful, and despite all the glowing words from Vex, Ilrek had not seen a single place dedicated to culture or peace. Cyril entered the room quietly. "The scans are complete. This planet's energy signature doesn't match the one that sent the original call." Ilrek nodded slowly. "I suspected as much. We are not where we were meant to be." "Then why have they said nothing?" "Because they see us as an advantage," Ilrek said. "Something they can use." There was a knock at the door. Vex entered with a pleasant smile, flanked by 2 armed officers. "Envoy Ilrek," he said smoothly. "I hope your stay continues to be comfortable." "It is efficient," Ilrek replied carefully. "But I would like to speak with the other global leaders. I understand your alliance is only one part of this world." Vex's smile didn't move. "Of course. But unfortunately, the others are unstable. Dangerous. Contact would only confuse the process. We must present unity, or your visit might be wasted." Ilrek's gaze didn't leave him. "You mean to control the message?" Vex's eyes hardened, just for a second. Then he turned to go. "Rest well, Envoy. Tomorrow, we'll show you our finest aerospace labs." The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Beneath the city, Kale and Lyra hid inside a rusted tunnel beneath a collapsed monorail station. The stolen broadcast had cost them more than they expected. Vex had tightened security across the city. Patrols doubled. Checkpoints raised. The drones were scanning every face. Kale barely escaped with the drive intact. "Did it work?" Lyra asked, wiping rain from her face. "I got the signal out," Kale said. "I don't know who received it, but if the right Earth got it, they might respond. Or warn the Serendi. And if not," Kale looked at her, "then we do this alone." Lyra sat down against the wall. "Vex won't wait long. He's probing their ship, planning how to take it. They won't hand it over. Not willingly. Then it'll be a slaughter." Kale took a deep breath. "We need to get inside that compound. Talk to the Serendi directly." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "That place is locked tighter than a vault." "Not entirely," Kale said, pulling out a small device. "Back in the bureau, I designed a bypass tool for drone surveillance. Should still work." "You always did keep toys," Lyra said with a faint smile. That night, under the cover of rain and static interference, Kale and Lyra made their way across the outer city ruins. They climbed service ladders, ducked through broken access tunnels, and reached the base of the Serendi compound. Kale activated the bypass. The drone lights flickered and spun, momentarily blind. The pair slipped through the perimeter and entered the lower ventilation shafts. Inside, Ilrek sat in quiet meditation when the wall panel hissed open. He stood quickly, alarmed, until Kale stepped out slowly, hands raised. "My name is Kale Mora," he said. "I'm here to warn you." Ilrek narrowed his eyes. "You're the one who sent the message." "Yes, and you're not safe here." Behind him, Lyra climbed through, closing the panel. She nodded in greeting. Kale spoke quickly, explaining the timeline fracture, the dimensional confusion, and Vex's real plan: to seize the alien ship, reverse engineer its tech, and dominate Earth 13 completely. Ilrek listened without interruption. When Kale finished, Ilrek remained still. "You say we were meant for another Earth?" Ilrek said. "A better one." Kale nodded. "This Earth isn't the one that called you. You've made contact with the wrong version of humanity." Ilrek looked out the window. "We suspected something, but hearing it confirms much." Lyra stepped forward. "Vex will act soon. You have to leave, or call your mother's ship." "I cannot leave without permission," Ilrek said. "And we cannot abandon diplomacy unless we are directly attacked." Kale looked at him grimly. "That won't take long." At dawn, Commander Vex stood inside the command center beneath the compound. A technician approached with a data slate. "We found the entrance the intruders used. Scans show the Serendi were warned." Vex said nothing for a moment. Then he turned to his officers. "Launch the assault. Now." The first explosions rocked the compound before sunrise. Pulse cannons fired from hidden turrets. Drones swooped in with high-velocity rounds. The Serendi defense field flared to life, but it was not made for war. It was diplomatic. Ilrek rushed through the corridors as his people prepared to evacuate. Cyril guided panicked technicians to the shuttle. Vane worked to activate a secondary beacon. Kale and Lyra fought through the smoke, helping escort Serendi staff to the launch platform. Vex arrived with a strike team, weapons drawn. He stepped forward as Ilrek stood between him and the shuttle. "Move aside, envoy. That ship belongs to Earth now." "It belongs to no one," Ilrek replied calmly. "You've proven what you are." Vex raised his weapon. Kale stepped forward, placing himself between them. "You wanted power, Vex. But this isn't power. This is fear." Vex sneered. "And you're a failure, still clinging to morals in a world that left them behind." Then a sharp, high-pitched tone filled the air. The Serendi beacon had activated. Above, a shimmering rift tore open in the sky. A portal. Another Earth had answered the call. The Serendi ship rose into the air, shields flickering. Enemy fire bounced off its hull. As the shuttle ascended, beams of white light reached down from the portal above. Figures moved in the light. Tall, human-shaped, but different. Calmer. Brighter. Another version of humanity. Vex stared upward in disbelief. Kale looked at Ilrek. "Go." Ilrek touched his shoulder once, gratefully, then stepped onto the ramp as the shuttle vanished into the light. Vex screamed in rage as his prize escaped. He fired, but Kale and Lyra were gone, already retreating into the chaos. In the sky, the portal pulsed one last time, then closed. Smoke curled into the sky above New Geneva. Buildings burned. Sirens wailed. The Serendi compound was in ruins, its sleek, alien design shattered by Earth 13's weapons. Pieces of glowing hull littered the ground like fallen stars. The silence that followed the battle was heavy, broken only by the whir of damaged drones trying to re-establish control. Kale Morris stood near the edge of the destroyed platform, breathing hard. Dust covered his face. His jacket was torn, one sleeve burned through. Beside him, Lyra crouched behind the twisted frame of a drone, her side bleeding through a ripped bandage. They had escaped the main assault, but just barely. Above them, the sky where the portal had opened was now empty. The bright light that had pierced the clouds was gone, closed before the Serendi ship could fully pass through. Only fragments had escaped. Kale stared at the space where the rift had been. "They didn't all make it through," he said quietly. "No," Lyra said, grimacing. "Only a few." She looked up at him. "You need to finish this." Kale nodded. In his satchel was the last piece of the drive, the part that contained the beacon code. The Serendi ship had tried to activate their beacon, but Vex forces disrupted the signal. The full message, the one meant to reach the correct Earth, had been cut off. There was one chance left. A backup location. A prototype beacon built years ago by the Unified Science Bureau, buried in a hidden lab beneath Mount Halion, far from the city. It was never meant for interdimensional use, but Kale could repurpose it. He helped Lyra to her feet. Can you move? She nodded with a pained smile. Painful, but I'll manage. We have to go? Now. Vex will be hunting us. In Dominion Tower, Commander Vex stood before a wall of shattered monitors. Technicians rushed to reroute power. Officers barked orders. The portal had opened, proof of another Earth, and then it had vanished. The Serendi had slipped through, but not all of them. Their tech remained. Broken, yes, but still valuable. Vex's face was hard and unreadable. They activated a beacon, he said. That's how the other Earth found them. Yes, Commander, replied the comms officer. But the signal was only partial. Then they'll try again. Vex turned toward his strike team. Find Mora? Find Vaden. If they reach the secondary beacon, the next portal will be stronger. Permanent. I want them stopped. Now. Kale and Lyra traveled by stolen bike, crossing the bleak plains outside the city. The terrain was dry and cracked, littered with old war debris. Towers of rusted metal loomed like skeletons, reminders of a time when machines turned against their masters. They kept low, off main roads, dodging sensor fields and patrol drones. Mount Halion rose ahead, dark against the gray sky. A narrow trail led up into its cliffs. Hidden among the rocks was a steel hatch, half buried under dirt and time. Kale knelt beside the keypad and brushed it clean. Still remember the code? Lyra asked. Kale smirked. I built the door. He tapped in a long sequence. The lock clicked open with a loud hiss. They entered a narrow corridor lit by flickering lights, the air stale from years of disuse. Inside, the lab was dusty but intact. Old equipment lined the walls, tools, cables, cracked monitors. In the center of the room stood the prototype, a tall pillar with copper wiring and a crystal core at its center. Kale moved quickly, connecting the beacon code to the interface. Sparks flew as he rerouted energy. Lyra watched the doorway, pistol in hand. I'm initiating the pulse, Kale said. If the other Earth is listening, this will call them directly. The beacon hummed to life, its crystal glowing blue. Then the door exploded. Vex soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Lyra fired first, dropping one, then another. She took a shot to the shoulder and fell behind a workbench. Kale dove behind the beacon, shielding it with his body. Vex entered slowly, rifle in hand, armor scorched from battle. It's over, Mora, he said. You failed. Your aliens left. Your portal closed. The other Earth won't come. They heard us once, Kale said, blood running from a cut on his forehead. They'll hear us again. Vex raised his weapon. I don't need you, he said. Just the beacon. Kale looked at the glowing crystal. You'll never understand, he said. You think strength is control, but strength is knowing when to stop. Then he pressed the activation sequence. The beacon flared to full brightness. A sharp pulse of energy shot upward, straight through the rock, into the sky. Outside, the clouds split. A rift opened again, wider this time. Steady. A portal between worlds. Figures appeared inside the light. Human, but not quite. Taller. Brighter. Peaceful. Vex turned toward it, stunned. He took a step forward, reaching out. A bolt of energy from the portal struck the ground in front of him. Not an attack. A warning. Kale stood between Vex and the light. You wanted to meet them, Kale said. Now you have. Vex hesitated. Then he screamed in frustration and raised his rifle. A shot rang out. Not from Vex, but from Lyra. Vex dropped his weapon, a smoking wound in his shoulder. He fell back, cursing. Kale stepped forward, touched the beacon, and sent the full message. A translation, an apology, and a request for help. The rift widened. A new voice echoed across the lab, not through speakers, but directly into their minds. We have heard you. Stand by. Moments later, a transport shimmered into existence. A peaceful vessel, not like the war machines of Earth. 13. Doors opened. Kale looked at Lyra. She nodded weakly. He turned to Vex. This Earth can still change, Kale said, but not with you in charge. Then he stepped into the light. Bright light filled the old lab beneath Mount Halion. It wasn't the harsh white of Earth 13's floodlights or the flicker of failing power grids. This light was warm and steady, like the sun on a world that had never known war. The transport ship from the peaceful Earth hovered silently, casting gentle pulses of color against the cracked walls. Kale Morris stepped forward, blinking against the glow. Behind him, Lyra Vaden leaned on the workbench, pale from blood loss, but smiling faintly. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice weak. Kale turned to her. "They answered the call. We don't belong here anymore." Lyra nodded. "Then let's go." He moved to help her, wrapping her arm over his shoulder. Together, they walked into the open doorway of the vessel. Inside, the air was clean. The hum of the engines was nearly silent, like a whisper. Medical bots hovered forward, scanning them gently. A soft voice echoed from overhead. "Welcome. You are safe now." As the transport rose into the air, the beacon below shut down. The blue light faded. The lab fell silent again, except for the muffled groans of Commander Vex Halron, still slumped against the wall, clutching his wounded shoulder. His soldiers had fled or fallen, and no backup was coming. He looked up as the portal above widened, its edges shimmering like a living mirror. For a brief moment, he saw the other Earth clearly. Green hills, clear skies, cities made of light and glass, children playing, no war machines, no patrol drones, just peace. And then it was gone. The portal closed with a soft flash, leaving only the gray sky of Earth 13. The transport soared across the upper atmosphere. Through the viewing panel, Kale and Lyra could see the fractured world shrinking behind them. Fires burned in its cities. Rivers were dry. Clouds hung heavy with toxins. And yet, even as it faded, Kale didn't feel hatred for it. Just sorrow. "Do you think they'll ever change?" Lyra asked. Kale thought for a moment. Maybe, but not under men like Vex. And not without help. The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through the boundary between dimensions. A ripple passed over them, silent, cold, and then warm. They emerged above a different world. This Earth was clean. Forests stretched for miles. Cities glowed beneath energy domes, powered by wind, sun, and something Kale couldn't even name. In the sky, other ships drifted like clouds. Peaceful, unarmed. The ship descended into a landing bay shaped like a giant open hand. Other humans waited there, not soldiers, but scientists, explorers, and envoys. They welcomed Kale and Lyra with quiet nods and warm eyes. A woman stepped forward. She looked like a version of someone Kale once knew, but older, wiser. Her name was Elin Vera, a senior diplomat from Earth Prime, the peaceful Earth the Serendi had originally intended to contact. "We received your signal," she said. "And your warning." Kale gave a small, tired smile. "They didn't all make it through. We know. We're reaching out to the Serendi now. They're safe, and they've told us what happened." She looked at them both. "What you did may have saved more than your world. The Serendi feared humanity after the mistake. Now they know the truth. Not all versions of us are the same." Lyra sat down on a bench nearby, the medbots already patching her wounds. She closed her eyes for a moment and let out a long breath. Kale stood beside Elin, looking out over the peaceful horizon. "Can we stay?" he asked. "For now," she said. "But I believe you'll want to go back someday." He turned to her, confused. "Back?" Elin nodded. "Your world is broken, but it's still yours. And now, you're not alone anymore." Kale didn't reply right away. He looked back out at the world before him, the one that might have been, had history gone another way. The one that still could be, if enough people were willing to fight not with guns, but with truth. Maybe, just maybe, Earth 13 wasn't lost. Maybe this was only the beginning. He walked back to Lyra and sat beside her. "What now?" she asked. Kale smiled. "Now we rest. Then we plan." Outside, the peaceful Earth turned slowly beneath them, waiting.